Hi, my name is Martin Klein and I work at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. I'd like to talk about robustifying links with Zotero, which is a collaborative effort with my colleague Shawn Jones. Before I start, however, I'd like to apologize for not being there in person. I had all intentions of being in Glasgow, but then this happens, so I can't travel. So I apologize for having to resort to this recording. But back to the topic at hand. I think we all can agree that the web is a very ephemeral medium. We've all clicked on links that don't go anywhere. We've all encountered the infamous 404 page not found error. Here on this slide I show an example when trying to browse to the iPres 2012 webpage, and it shows this example of link rot. Another example of link rot is the iPres 2014 webpage, which also doesn't go anywhere anymore. However, there is another aspect of this detriment, which is what we commonly refer to as content drift, meaning when the content of a page changes significantly over time. So here I discovered the canonical website of the iPres 2015 conference, and I don't know really what is showing on this page, but I'm fairly confident it has nothing to do with the iPres 2015 conference anymore. So a number of years ago, within the Hyperlink project actually, we started investigating the notion of link rot and content drift, and we coined the term reference rot as the combination of these two phenomena. We specifically looked at reference rot in the context of our scholarship and our scholarly record. We found that as authors of, for example, blog posts or peer reviews or scholarly articles and manuscripts and technical reports, we increasingly saw reference resources on the web. Those resources could be, another blog post or a news article, for example. And just because we reference those resources doesn't mean that they're any more stable than any other arbitrary resource on the web. These resources often, just like the majority of resources on the web, don't have DOIs, for example. They don't necessarily have persistent identifiers. And with that, they're often under the custodianship of parties that don't necessarily care all that much about the long-term accessibility and availability, or integrity for that matter, of those cited resources. In addition, I think it's fair to say that these resources on the web don't necessarily have the same sense of fixity that we are used to from, for example, scholarly articles in PDF form as published by a commercial publisher. So all these are observations that motivated us to investigate these phenomena and to propose a solution. And the solution that we proposed, we called it robust links. And robust links is a concept that basically consists of two steps. The first step is create an archival copy of the web resource that you are intending to cite in your manuscript, for example. There are a number of institutions available, such as the Internet Archive, for example, that allow you to proactively create an archival copy of a web page, of a resource on the web that you intend to cite. So utilize those. And while that is a good first step, you still need to let people know that an archival copy of your reference exists. So the second step in the robust links concept is to robustify your link. And what we mean by that is add pieces of information to a link. Specifically, our robust links consist of three pieces of information. A, the URL to the newly created archival record. B, the time of linking. And C, the original URL of the resource on the live web. With these three pieces of information, I can A, visit the live version of the resource on the web. B, in case that live version is gone or the content has changed significantly, I can still resort to the archival version and I can visit that resource in an archive. Or C, if that archival version is not available either because, for example, the archive has disappeared, I can still use the original resource URL and the datetime of linking as two pieces of information that I need to find and discover other archival snapshots of that cited resource in different web archives. So I have several different fallback mechanisms that I can use and that make a link robust, more robust for sure. Right? And of course, our approach is uniform and machine actionable, as we'll see here in a second. So let's look at an example of a very simple HTML link. Right, this link links to the iPres 22 website, and if I robustify this link, it looks like this. So I still have my original URL, ipres22.scot, in the href attribute. So it is the default target of the link. Right? A left mouse click will always get me there. However, I also include the archival link in the version URL attribute, and I also include the date time of linking in the version date attribute. And now if I want to turn it around, of course I can. If I want to make the archival resource as the default link target, I can put the archival URL in the href attribute, and I can include the original URL in the data-original attribute, as shown here on this slide. And I will also include the date time in the version date attribute, as shown here. So very simple, standard HTML attributes that no browser or search engine will complain about, that can help you to make your link much more robust. So if you would like to see robust links in action, I would refer you to our recent Code for Lib article, where we robustified all our links and all our references and made them actionable in a web browser by just adding a little bit of CSS and JavaScript, as shown here on the right-hand side of this slide. So if you now say, well, that's great, but I really don't want to go through the trouble and manually do all these steps by myself, we have created a web service that can support you in doing so. Simply input a URL that you would like to see robustified, and the service will, as shown here on the right-hand side of this screen, will return to you the robustified HTML code that you can use and copy and paste, for example, into your manuscript. The engine that basically powers this web service is an API that we created that you can also use to write a script, for example, to robustify many URLs in batch mode, if you will. That API is also forming the basis of our Zotero robust links extension. So let's look at what we did with Zotero. If you're familiar with this very popular reference manager, you will know that there are several different ways of ingesting entries into Zotero. For example, you can use a resources identifier, let's say it's DOI, to automatically ingest an entry into Zotero. Or you can do it manually, for example, for a blog post. You can manually enter that record into Zotero. Upon ingestion of a new entry into Zotero, our robust links extension will trigger and will check the entry's metadata and see whether there is a valid URI or URL in the corresponding metadata field available. If there is, if the extension does find a URL, it will take that URL and it will robustify it for you. This process is triggered automatically if you ingest an entry via a DOI, for example, its identifier. Or you can trigger this process manually, for example, for manually generated entries in Zotero. The outcome of the robust links process in Zotero is a note that is created for each item that contains all relevant robust links data that you can then use, for example, to copy and paste a robustified link into your manuscript. So if you're very familiar with Zotero, you'll know that it has a very strong export functionality for all items in your Zotero library. So we created a robust links translator that allows you to export one or more items from your Zotero library as HTML that then includes all robustified links for you. So that HTML file that can be conveniently, for example, attached to your manuscript or used in your HTML writing. So let's look at an example. I took a number of screenshots here to show you how the robust links extension in Zotero works. This is my Zotero library, and I created an entry manually created an entry for iPres 22. And as you can see on the right-hand side, it has the canonical URL of the conference in its metadata record. So I right-click on this entry, and I will be presented with a menu where I can choose the option Robustify this resource. And there I can choose the default setting for any web archive that the extension currently works with, or I can pick the archive of my choice, my preferred web archive that allows me to proactively create an archival copy of this item. So I click the corresponding, I make my choice, I click on an archive. In this case, I chose the Internet Archive to create an archival copy for me. And as we can see here, a note is created for the iPres 2022 entry in Zotero that, as shown on the right-hand side of the screen, includes or shows all robust links data that is relevant for me that I can use to now copy and paste into my manuscript, into my document. And the other thing that I wanted to show is the export functionality. I again right-click on my iPres 2022 item, and I choose the export item option, and there I get a drop down with all different translators that come out of the box with Zotero, to which we added our robust links translator that allows us, if chosen, to export this entry in HTML format with all robust links information included. All right, so let's summarize. It's not surprising that the web is dynamic, right? This will not shock anybody. Links disappear all the time, content changes all the time. However, if we think about this detriment or these scenarios in the context of our scholarship, of how we reference resources on the web in our articles, in our blog posts, in our peer reviews, you name it, then the burden really to provide reliable links to those resources falls on us as authors. Right? And the robust links concept proposes these two steps to create an archival copy proactively of the resource that you intend to cite, and then robustify your links in your documents to address this problem of reference rot. So we created this Zotero Robust Links extension to help you do that, to help you maintain your Zotero library and create robust links within your library for the records that are in your library. And with that, hopefully, contributing at least a little bit towards further addressing the detrimental effects of reference rot in our scholarship. So please give it a try. Please share your thoughts. I've included on this slide the link to the Robust Links and Zotero extension website that includes the documentation and, of course, a how-to for installation of the extension. And I also included a link to the GitHub repository that holds the code that from where you can download the extension. So please give it a try. Please do get in touch for any questions and comments you may have. I very much appreciate your attention, and thank you very much for listening. And yeah, please do get in touch. Thank you.